So once they got into the Jordan Valley, they figured it must be time to cross the river. Let's make it through to Amman. When you read the official histories, you'll see two chapters, one devoted to the raid on Es-Salt and Amman, and one devoted to the raid on Es-Salt. These were called raids. Now, a raid in France, when you read the histories about a raid in France, our Australian troops were actually quite well known for the ability to do a raid between the two trenches. In the middle of the night, some of our guys would just take off and in 10 minutes do a whole lot of damage to an enemy's trench, take as many prisoners as they can, do as much damage, come back, and within 10 minutes a bombardment would start and the raid was over. In other words, you go across, you raid the enemy, you come back out. Both chapters devoted to the other side of the Jordan at this time, around about early 1918, are called raids. They were a lot bigger than going from one trench to another trench, but the reason they were called raids is really, I think anyway, because they were failures. We wanted to take the ground, we wanted to remain in Amman. It would have hurried the end of the war up very quickly for this part of the world. But in both cases, we were quite nastily defeated. Part of the reason for that is what we're experiencing here. It's the bitter cold and the wind, the rain, the snow, and that's exactly what's happening in Jordan right now. The first raid was a raid right through to Amman, and that occurred around about the end of March 1918. They came across, they had to swim across the Jordan River to try. It was flooded at the time, and by the way, it was exactly the same time, almost to the week, that Joshua crossed over from the Jordan side, Moab side, into the Promised Land. Around the same time for the first raid, some of our guys, New Zealanders and Pommies, had to try and swim across the flooded Jordan River, make a bridgehead, and the attack began, pushing the Turks back. The infantry were used in the bottom of the valley, the British. They pushed them back, and then of course the guys with their horses, camels, came up the amazing mountains up to Amman. Now the first town that had to be captured in both cases was Es-Salt, and that's where I am right now. It's nestled in the valley above the Jordan Valley, and in both cases when they came in here, the town fell quite fast. Now Es-Salt was known for having a mixture of population. There were Arab, Muslims, there were Christians also, a strong community of Christians in this town. Now in both cases I said the raids failed, but what that meant is when the boys first came in and took this town in particular, Es-Salt, the Christians saw it as liberation. So they partied, they joined with our guys, they were happy, they thought the war had ended for them. But within days when the raid finished and the guys had to leave and withdraw back across the Jordan, what that meant is all the Christians that had joined and rejoiced in the liberation couldn't stay in the town for fear of retribution from the Turks and the Arabs. So what happened in this weather, in freezing cold weather, particularly at night, they had to withdraw, and many of our guys' diaries and the official history mentions that as they made their way down out of this valley, down into the Jordan Valley, they said it was just a massive humanity, it was a mess. There was mud everywhere, the guys were falling off their horses, and you had women and children, refugees now, with what belongings they could carry on a donkey or on their back, trying to make their way down into the Jordan Valley with our troops across to safety. These were genuine refugees, and apparently it was a pitiful sight. Many of the women and children just weren't making it, and so many of our guys got off their netties and let the locals get on the netties to bring them all down into the Jordan Valley, across the new formed bridges to safety on the other side.